what do you make of all the ridiculousness
We've
about
matched.
you and Brad reuniting on all these carpets all season long?
It's hysterical, but what else are they going to talk about?
For decades, Brad Pitt's romances have functioned almost like front-page entertainment in their own right. 2 marriages, countless rumored flings, and endless tabloid speculation have kept his name fixed in Hollywood's collective memory as one of its defining love stories. But behind the headlines, there has reportedly always been one woman who stood apart from the rest. And after years of staying mostly quiet on the subject, Brad has apparently acknowledged that she left the deepest mark on his life. Long before fame found him, Brad Pitt was simply a small-town guy chasing a dream. Born in Shawnee, Oklahoma, and raised in Springfield, Missouri, his upbringing centered on church, football, and school theater rather than anything resembling Hollywood. When he drove west to Los Angeles, he was just another hopeful actor trying to break into the industry, working odd jobs, including a stint in a chicken costume promoting a fast food chain, while taking acting classes and waiting for a break. One of his earliest relationships happened well before his name meant anything publicly. In 1986, he began dating British pop singer Sinitta, who already had some chart success in the UK. Their relationship lasted close to 2 years before ending in 1988, long before Brad's breakout. Sinitta later described him warmly, recalling his youth and easygoing nature before stardom changed everything, and admitted that watching him later in Thelma and Louise left her with a pang of regret about letting the relationship go. His next romance came with actress Jill Scullin, his co-star in the 1989 horror film Cutting Class. It was brief, but notable since Scullin had previously been engaged to Keanu Reeves, setting a pattern of romance and career intersecting that would continue throughout Brad's life. Soon after, Brad was linked to E.G. Daily, a voice actress recognized for her animation work. She later described him as intense and clearly driven, someone she sensed was destined for something bigger than just being a handsome face, and the two apparently remained friendly after the relationship ended. In 1989, Brad's name became tied to one of his first real celebrity controversies when he was rumored to be involved with actress Robin Givens, who was going through a contentious separation from boxer Mike Tyson. According to Tyson's own memoir, he once came home to find Brad in a car with Givens and claimed to have caught them together in bed, though Givens later denied the more dramatic version, acknowledging only that Tyson had seen them together in a car. Whatever the full truth, the episode previewed something that would define much of Brad's life going forward. His relationships would rarely stay private. Another brief but memorable chapter came when Brad dated Christina Applegate, then rising to fame on Married, with children. The two appeared together at the 1989 MTV Movie Awards, but Christina reportedly left the event with someone else entirely, a story she confirmed years later without naming the man involved. The relationship that followed carried far more weight. In late 1989, Brad began dating actress Juliette Lewis, who was 16 at the time while he was 26. Their relationship lasted 4 years, a notable stretch of stability during a period when his career was rapidly taking off. They co-starred in Too Young to Die and California, with chemistry extending well beyond the screen. Brad later described their time together as one of the most meaningful relationships of his life, telling an interviewer in 1995 that he still cared for her even years after they'd split. Juliette, for her part, was less sentimental about it later, telling a magazine in 2014 that she was tired of being constantly tied to his name and had moved on long before. Still, for Brad, the relationship reportedly represented one of his first real experiences with genuine intimacy as fame began closing in. By the early 90s, Brad Pitt was no longer just another working actor. His brief but unforgettable role in Thelma and Louise turned him into an overnight sensation, and from that point his romantic life would increasingly play out on a global stage. The relationship that changed everything began in 1995, when Brad met Gwyneth Paltrow on the set of David Fincher's Seven. On-screen she played his wife, and off-screen the two became one of the most talked-about couples of the decade. Gwyneth, daughter of actress Blythe Danner and director Bruce Paltrow, paired with Brad's Midwestern charm to create a couple that dominated red carpets and magazine covers throughout the mid-90s. At the 1996 Golden Globes, Brad referred to Gwyneth during his acceptance speech in deeply affectionate terms, fueling public belief that the relationship was built to last. Their bond went well beyond surface appearances. Gwyneth later revealed that Brad proposed to her on a balcony during a trip to Argentina. And even though marriage had already come up between them, the actual moment still caught her by surprise. She was only 24 at the time, but Brad reportedly felt certain she was the one. Their engagement became a constant subject of speculation in the press, but by June 1997 it had ended. Gwyneth later admitted she simply hadn't been ready for that level of commitment, describing herself as too immature for marriage to someone like Brad at the time, a decision that reportedly devastated her father, who had grown genuinely fond of him. Despite the heartbreak, Brad never spoke negatively about Gwyneth afterward, and she in turn continued to describe their connection warmly, even decades later, as one of the great loves of her life. By 2022, the two could be seen laughing together publicly as old friends, suggesting whatever pain remained from the breakup had long since faded. Though it ended before marriage, the relationship reportedly taught Brad what it meant to commit fully and to lose someone he believed was his future, a lesson that shaped the years that followed. When Brad met Jennifer Aniston, he was already a recognizable name thanks to legends of The Fall, Seven, and Fight Club, while Jennifer had become one of America's most beloved stars through her role on Friends. Their paths first crossed through their managers in the mid-90s without anything coming of it. But by 1998, the timing had shifted. Jennifer had recently ended a relationship, and Brad's engagement to Gwyneth had ended a year earlier. When their managers reconnected them, something clicked immediately, with Jennifer later describing their first date as easy and genuinely fun. By September 1999, they made their public debut as a couple at the Emmy Awards, and the media reaction was immediate. 2 months later, at a concert in New York, they announced their engagement, with Jennifer wearing a custom ring reportedly months in the making. Their wedding on July 29, 2000, in Malibu became one of the most lavish celebrity weddings of the era, complete with hundreds of guests, a choir, fireworks, and an enormous floral budget that pushed the total cost toward an estimated $1 million. For years afterward, Brad and Jennifer embodied a kind of Hollywood ideal, frequently photographed together and even appearing on Friends together in a memorable guest spot. They also launched Plan B Entertainment, a production company that would eventually produce major films, reinforcing their image as a powerhouse couple. But cracks were forming beneath the surface. In a 2003 interview, Jennifer notably hesitated when asked to call Brad the love of her life, describing their relationship in warmer but less absolute terms. Around the same time, rumors began swirling about Brad's growing connection with Angelina Jolie on the set of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and the public narrative started to shift. In January 2005, Brad and Jennifer announced their separation after nearly 5 years of marriage, and by March, Jennifer had filed for divorce, which was finalized that October. In a Raw interview later that year, she described the experience as deeply painful, admitting how difficult it was to be reduced to a tabloid storyline, especially after photos of Brad and Angelina together in Kenya surfaced just weeks after the split. Even so, she insisted she refused to let the breakup or the surrounding narrative define her. If Jennifer represented Hollywood's fairy tale, what came next with Angelina Jolie represented its firestorm. The two met while filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith in 2003. While Brad was still married to Jennifer, and on-set chemistry rumors began almost immediately given the physical and emotional intensity required by the role. Angelina later said the connection developed gradually during filming rather than as an instant spark, describing how she began looking forward to work simply because Brad was there. By summer 2005, photos of Brad with Angelina and her children in Kenya sparked a media frenzy. And by 2006, Angelina was pregnant with their daughter Shiloh. Brad went on to formally adopt Angelina's 2 children, Maddox and Zahara, and the couple welcomed son Pax in 2007 and twins Knox and Vivian in 2008, suddenly making Brad the father of 6 children. Dubbed Brangelina by the press, the couple became a global phenomenon known as much for humanitarian work and international adoption as for their film careers, with nearly every public appearance closely tracked by media outlets. In 2014, Brad and Angelina married at their French estate, Chateau Miraval, in an intimate ceremony where their children played central roles, including helping design Angelina's dress and contribute to their vows. For a brief period, it looked like a second chapter to their story had begun. But by 2016, the relationship had unraveled. Angelina filed for divorce citing concerns about family well-being, and reports soon surfaced describing an altercation on a private plane involving allegations that Brad had become physical with one of the children. Brad denied harming any of his children, and both the FBI and Child Protective Services closed their investigations without filing charges. The divorce itself dragged on for years, with custody disputes and disagreements over the fate of Chateau Miraval continuing well into the following decade, turning what had once captivated the world into one of Hollywood's most bitter separations. After the fallout from his divorce from Angelina, Brad largely withdrew from public dating for a while, focusing instead on his children and his work. But public interest never fully faded, and any new connection tended to generate speculation almost instantly. In 2018, rumors linked him to MIT professor and architect Neri Oxman, a relationship Oxman herself denied was romantic, even as she spoke positively about him. By 2020, he was briefly connected to model Nicole Patrialski, a relationship widely described as casual that ended within months. In 2022, he was seen spending time with model Emily Ratajkowski shortly after her separation, though that connection also faded quickly without becoming anything more serious. Then came Ines de Ramon, a jewelry designer who had recently separated from actor Paul Wesley. Unlike his more fleeting post-divorce connections, this relationship grew steadier over time. The two were first spotted together in late 2022, celebrated his birthday together that December, and by February 2024 Ines had reportedly moved into his Los Angeles home. By September 2024 they made their red carpet debut together at the Venice Film Festival, presenting a far calmer image than the turbulence that had defined much of Brad's previous public relationships. Yet even with a new, more stable relationship in his life, the public's fascination with his connection to Jennifer Aniston never fully went away. In a 2007 interview, just 2 years after their divorce, Brad acknowledged that he and Jennifer still maintained a real friendship and shared history that hadn't simply disappeared. Jennifer, for her part, had said around the same period that she still loved him and expected she always would. Over the following years, public appearances reinforced that lingering connection, from Brad attending her 50th birthday party in 2019 to an emotional embrace backstage at the Screen Actors Guild Awards in 2020, to a flirtatious virtual table read later that year that left fans convinced the old chemistry hadn't disappeared, even as both insisted they were simply close friends. For Brad, the years with Jennifer reportedly represented a kind of grounded stability that none of his later relationships fully replicated, even though the marriage ultimately collapsed under the pressures of fame. Behind the headlines, Brad has also spoken candidly in more recent years about working through struggles with alcohol and going through therapy following his split from Angelina, describing how that process forced him to confront how his choices had affected the people closest to him. What makes his more recent reflections on Jennifer notable isn't just the sentiment itself, but that it came from a far more reflective, matured version of the man, rather than the impulsive declarations of his younger years. Taken together, Brad Pitt's romantic history reads almost like its own extended narrative, from the carefree relationships of his youth, to the heartbreak with Gwyneth Paltrow, the golden couple years with Jennifer Aniston, the passionate rise and painful collapse of his marriage to Angelina Jolie, and the quieter, steadier relationship he's built more recently with Ines de Ramon. Through all of it, one connection has continued to capture public fascination more than any other, and in recent years Brad himself has reportedly acknowledged what many fans long suspected, that whatever the future holds, Jennifer Aniston remains one of the defining loves of his life.